right. Hello. I was trying to avoid the mic earlier. Hello, everyone. It is now 6:36. I am sorry. Tuesday, May 27th. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Cunningham Township Board. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Wu.
Here.
Trustee Evans. Trustee Hersey.
Here.
Trustee Colasetti.
Here.
Trustee Bishop.
Here.
Trustee Wilkin.
Here.
Trustee Quisenberry.
Here.
Mayor Williams.
Here.
Supervisor Chenoweth.
Present.
Assessor Owana. Okay.
All right. The first item of business is the administration of oath of office to our newly elected officers. Clerk, can you confirm that the oaths have been administered prior to this meeting?
Yes, that is correct. With the start of her term, we administered the oath to Supervisor Chenoweth, which we have. So congratulations on a new term.
Congratulations.
Happy to serve.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right. Next item of business is the approval of minutes from January 13th, February 10th, and March 10th meetings. Can I get a motion to approve?
And January 13th, move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Sharice, seconded by Trustee Grace. That motion passes.
We're going to vote.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say
Aye.
All right. All opposed say nay. All right. The ayes have it. That motion approves. All right. Do I need to do that for each? All right.
Yes, anytime there's an item that has a vote. So our minutes will have them. We will also have that again for committee to verify bills. And then, of course, each of the items of new business.
Correct. No, my question was each individual date. So the January 13th, January 10th, and March 10th.
So they are presented as an omnibus.
Okay.
So they could have been approved in one. When the motion was stated, was it just the first meeting?
Yes.
Okay, why don't we make a second motion then for the other two meeting dates, just for clarity for the record?
That I'm learning, y'all. All right. So I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes for February 10th and March 10th meetings.
I move to approve those minutes.
Second.
All right. Approved by Trustee Sharice, seconded by Trustee Grace. All in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. All opposed?
Aye.
All right. All opposed, say nay. All right. The ayes have it. Those minutes are approved. Thank you. All right. Are there any additional agenda items? No additional other than let's move into closed session. Let's see here. All right. All right, so now we will move on to public participation. If there's anyone in the public that would like to address the Cunningham Township Board, you may now walk up to the mic, speak your name into the record.
Thank you. My name is Esther Pat. I live in Urbana, and I'm the director of the Champaign-Urbana Tenant Union. First, I want to say how very grateful I am, well, that the Cunningham Township Supervisor has stepped up to address the vital shelter needs of the people forced from their homes by recent condemnations. And there isn't enough of that going on. I'm just so grateful for the Cunningham Township Supervisor's Office in general, but that specifically. And of course, I ask that you please support the resolution to approve the intergovernmental agreement. I also would like to ask you, in your capacity as city council members, but since this is on tonight's agenda, I did it here, to do two things. And one is to re-examine the Urbana relocation ordinance. There are some flaws in it. It was a fight to get the thing passed in the first place because of this resistance to the idea that the city should help people. That's a slightly biased statement, but that was what was going on at the time. We had a city attorney, or you had a city attorney who instructed the city staff and the mayor and the council that anytime the city condemned a property, it would be best if the city had no communication whatsoever with the tenants who were affected and have all communication through the landlord, who has been so naughty that they have to condemn on him. It was crazy. Anyway, so we got that 14-day time limit. I challenge any of you to get kicked out of your house and find a place to live in 14 days. The relocation assistance needs to be upgraded. And there are probably a few other things. The experts on this and the people in this community who have had more experience dealing with relocation than anyone else are Danielle Chenoweth and her staff. So partner, please, with the township to get the information about what you need to change. The other ask is a little more complicated, but it is important. And that is that you take a look at your property maintenance code enforcement procedures and ask what more can you do to prevent properties from deteriorating to the point of condemnation. Now, in this case, I'm informed that this time around with the Silver and Fletcher properties, you did have fairly short notice of it from the police and then discovered it was horrible. 12 years ago with the Silver and Fletcher properties with the previous owner, the city knew about the problem for a long time. And in fact, I don't want to pick on Urbana, so I'm going to pick on Champaign instead. At the Champaign Park Apartments, where they've condemned 26 of the 29 buildings, tenant union and City of Champaign Neighborhood Services were getting complaints for at least 5 years before the first apartment was condemned, and the first condemnations, I think, were already 2 years ago. And over again, people complained about ceiling leaks and mold in their apartments, about inoperable heat, about malfunctioning air conditioners, about water seepage, about roach infestation and bed bug infestation. And then if someone complained, the City of Champaign would go out and cite the violations. But then when the landlord didn't do anything, nothing happens. And we have a similar situation here in Urbana where there's a big gap between the deadline for compliance if the landlord doesn't comply and when the city finally does something. And I would just like you to have a look at it and see if there is, in fact, something more you can do. And frankly, I don't want to get into detail here, but the City Council did, after a great political battle, pass an ordinance 12 years ago requiring the city to fine landlords, to issue tickets. The city's always had the power to fine landlords, but if you fine a landlord $750 a day and then take him to court a year later, it's over $100,000. And, you know, and it's a big thing. And the city legal department, and this is just Urbana, cities across the country do not like to sue landlords for code violations because it gets to be a big, big thing. And that's why we came up with the ticket idea. Oh, that if a landlord gets ticketed, they're going to, for $300, and you take them to city court like you take everyone else, they're going to go ahead and pay because, and then maybe they'll hire a lawyer, but it's not going to be the big thing. But if you wait until you're asking for $250,000 of fines, which I think is, it seems to me is the only time the city does it, it's too late. And then people get evicted. I mean, not evicted, constructively evicted. The city ends up evicting people who've been living with bad conditions for years, and there's no consequence for the landlord. And it's not that I want them punished, but I think if there were more consequences sooner in the process, they wouldn't drag it out to the point that it becomes this cause célèbre where there are dozens of people who need to be relocated. Anyway, Danielle Chenoweth and some of her key staff and I are eager to talk with the mayor and his building safety and legal department staff about how to help prevent something like this from ever happening again. And you can't prevent them all, but I think we could prevent some with some changes that we can talk about. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Is there any additional public input? All right, seeing none. Next, we have the Committee to Verify Bills. Ms. Danielle Chenoweth.
Good evening. I'm going to go ahead for this next section on Committee to Verify Bills and the reports of officers and use the overhead. It would be helpful if you, PTV, if you could switch to the overhead as well. Yep. Thank you. I appreciate that. So this last month in the town fund, so just, and I'll do a little bit of orientation for the new mayor as well, that basically we have two different funds. We have the town fund, which generally supports administration for the township as a whole and includes the assessor's office. And then we have the general assistance fund, which is for general assistance purposes only. So we have two different funds, two different levies. In the town fund, we had $59,062.22 in expenditures in this last month. And in the general assistance fund, a whopping $237,598.34. Our total expenditures were $296,666.56. The memo in the packet has a listing of not only the summary of the expenditures by the budget, but also line item by line item, the expenditures. So every month, the town board looks over the expenditures, and if they have any questions, feel free to ask questions about expenditures you may have. So this is the time when I would take any questions on the town bills, and you could also make a motion to approve if you so wish. And I'll go on to the supervisor's memo and the special memo after that.
Are there any questions? All right, seeing none.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, Mary Alice.
Yeah, so Danielle, I noticed in the bills that there was a payment for somebody's car repairs. And I was looking to see if I could find which line item it was. And I was wondering how decisions are made in terms of, there it is. So there was KCM Auto Care car repair for RRH client. It was $1,100.
Yep. So car repair is an eligible expense of all of our rapid rehousing clients, along with gas cards, bus passes, and other transportation issues. And so the criteria that's used is that the car has to be used for people to get to and from employment. And if the if it's like vehicle registration or car repair and the car repair is reasonable, the state allows us to pay up to a certain amount for car repairs. So it's not a very common situation that we do car repairs because we won't. But in this case, we have funds for that purpose. It's an eligible expense for that grant.
So I do know that the RPC also does some assistance with car repairs. I'm not entirely sure what their rules are about it, but I do know that they do have a program for it.
Yeah, so we typically send folks who are not funded through that program when it's open, funded through our program, or not eligible for that expense to RPC, because they have limited dollars, and we were given more dollars than we had even requested this year. We felt like it was a more judicious use of public funds for us to take care of that for our participants. And that's not uncommon. There are multiple places in town that provide the same services, and it all depends on what their funding line item is. So they do run out of funds with the transportation assistance, and so as much as we can avoid them running out of funds for folks who don't have other options, I think that's better for everyone.
All right. Thanks for the additional information.
Sure, no problem.
Are there any additional questions? All right, seeing or hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the bills from the Town Fund and General Assistance Fund?
So moved.
A second.
All right. Motion by Trustee Gray, seconded by Trustee Jaya to approve the bills. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Colasetti,
Yes.
Trustee Bishop, Trustee Bishop,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkie,
Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Quisenberry.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes. All right, next we have reports of officers.
Great, so I'm gonna, I'll direct you, if you could put back up the supervisor's memo for the public to see as well. Thank you. So we went through the town bills report. I just typically, what the supervisor's memo is it's a team by team look at last month's activities. We provide data and metrics for all of our programs in the memo. It's not a requirement, but I think it's a really important part of showing the public what we do. It also provides us a point in time count so that we can see progress over time, and it helps us to monitor trends, and it helps the town board to be aware of those trends so that when it comes to budget time or contracts time that the town board can be in the know and kind of understand what the needs are. We have multiple teams. I'm going to I won't read through this all in detail. You have it, and it's lengthy. But I'll start with the general assistance team. That's a monthly grant for Urbana residents who are disabled or out of work, and we also layer supportive services on that, including health and housing. Is that me causing all this trouble? Just a quick request, since I'm going to be presenting for a few minutes, if you are on the phone, if you could mute yourself, that would be awesome, because it's a little loud. And great, thank you so much. So we had 24 new applications submitted last month. We had 93 active. That was a decrease from 104. Residents, and you can see a breakdown. About half are on the disability track. They're awaiting SSI, SSDI, or we are helping them prepare an application. They have to have medical verification of a disability that would generally qualify for SSI, SSDI to be on that track. Then we have 29 on the education and employment track. The TANF track is a 3-month track for folks with children who are applying for TANF. Typically, TANF takes 45 days to apply and receive a response, and it's very frequent that there's a denial or a technical issue and you have to reapply. So we do just as flat 3 months, and we will support people through the TANF process. And then you'll see some demographics. We were very close to 0 homeless residents who are on general assistance. We're up to 21. It is down from 30 in March. That's primarily due to closures on the employment and education track due to non-participation in the work requirements. And then you can see some of the information here. I usually put in yellow what are some of the areas that I want to highlight. We're very concerned about layoffs at Social Security. They're requiring appointments now even for residents experiencing homelessness. If you put those two things together, it means they can't really get access. And we are reaching out to our SOAR statewide lead. We are the county-wide lead for SOAR, which is an element of SAMHSA at the federal level that helps people apply for disability, especially those who are homeless or have been homeless a while. It's very difficult to apply anyway, and if you're homeless and you have chronic health conditions, it's just pretty much impossible. So SOAR is a process that was put in place to help people with that. We do have housing first payments for folks who were on general assistance. We help them get into subsidized housing, and for some reason they struggled with compliance with our program. We still pay their housing. So to keep them housed, we'll pay their subsidized housing every month, and that actually has done wonders for keeping folks from homelessness. It's a payment of about $100 a month from our office. And those who are current GA participants, if they are not paying their rent to their subsidized housing, then I have the discretion to say, hey, we're going to pay your rent for you. And so I will put people on the Housing First track, and they'll get the difference in their check between what we paid in their rent and what's left over. And I don't have complaints about that program. It's a good program. The CARES team is our second team. It is a newer team that we put all of our emergency response under that. It's the Cunningham Township Assessment Response and Emergency Alternative Response and Emergency Services. And it is everything from front desk, rental assistance, utility assistance, short-term stays, emergency housing, et cetera. I do want to note for the town board that we're back up to almost 1,600 calls per service. Those are incoming calls for service just to our office, not the assessor, up from 1,300 in March and 1,230 in February. That's pandemic level calls for service. And it has just been off the chain. I don't know how else to put it. 56 applications were received and processed in April of rental assistance, up from 31 in March. We usually go into the summer season and rental assistance applications are very steeply increase over the summer as people's hours are cut back. Anyone who's talking with the University of Illinois could talk to them about how to better stabilize the economy locally so that they're not laying people off every summer. And then utility assistance, all federal staff at LIHEAP were laid off in April, and the proposed budget for next year seeks to eliminate the program. RPC is out of LIHEAP funds. But after I wrote this memo, we spoke, and there will be some limited assistance for cooling this summer. So for people with active shutoffs, and for folks with disabilities or a senior, have a senior in the household, they can access some limited funds. So we have served a large number of households with our own utility assistance. This is only if they do not qualify for LIHEAP or LIHEAP is closed. So we really always send people to LIHEAP, LIWAP, et cetera. So you'll see those numbers as well, and you'll kind of can see over time it's been going. It goes down in the winter. You'll see transportation. We did 10 annual bus passes. Street outreach. We have a really high number of people on street outreach. In April, we had 62 households representing 68 residents. Usually, we would like to keep that around 30 to 40, so it's large. And I'll talk a little bit about the displaced residents. Our school outreach, you can see we served 236 families referred from Urbana schools, including 608 homeless children, homeless or housing insecure children in this year. We got 5 family referrals, including 15 children this last month from USD, and 4 family referrals from Crisis Nursery with 8 children. And then we do housing navigation and supportive services. So while people are on our wait list, we help people navigate and apply for all available housing options. And sometimes they don't even go into shelter because we're able to house them. We also support our general assistance participants who are homeless. And you can see we had a really good month. We got placements in our family shelter. We've got a placement in our hotel program, and we signed a lease with a family. So then Bridge to Home housing team is our third team, and it primarily is our more transitional housing program. So you'll see we serve 24 households representing 29 individuals in hotels. Our program plan is only 12. So we've just kind of continued to squeeze blood from the turnip to house people in hotel program. We did have some good news from this last month. We had one person with disabilities, pretty significant disabilities, who's been in our program for over a year, had 3 surgeries while in the program, and has moved into a permanent supportive housing situation. And then we had 2 program participants who moved into permanent housing they can pay for on their own after some support with full-time employment. We'll get to rapid rehousing, but basically it looks like we'll get almost $100,000 more in rapid rehousing next year for a number of different reasons. And that is basically for homeless residents to move directly into independent housing. The biggest barrier to rapid rehousing is housing discrimination, which continues to be a problem in Urbana and Champaign. And then you'll see we really like to keep the number of families on our prioritization list at 1 or 0. And we have been there before, but we have not been there all the school year. So we have 8 families on our prioritization list. We like to not have anyone unsheltered. We have 3 who are unsheltered. And then we have other assistance. We have angel donor funds. You can see here we do housewarming gifts. We have a digital inclusion program. We have a help desk where people can get support applying for our programs and related programs on Tuesday afternoons and Thursday mornings at the Urbana Free Library second floor. These are our 8 digital navigators who just got certified after attending a semester-long training events. We had over 50 people, including all of our former digital navigators, and that was on campus. Very exciting. I will just say that program has just been phenomenal, and the digital navigators staff our help desk at the Urbana Free Library. Food support, you'll see in April we served about 90 households. Typically we serve somewhere between 90 and 100 households a month. There's some data here in terms of first-time users rather than repeating users. And then Solidarity Gardens, we're at about 72 gardens now, and you can see all the various fruits and vegetables that we have planted here. We're working on moving forward with our SUN grant with the city of Urbana, and we also have a SARE grant to help with training and education. And then we had a number of events with PACE. We did a work authorization event, and then we did our staff development. Everyone in our office is now certified in CPR and the use of an AED, and everyone has gone through their annual sexual harassment prevention compliance. And you can track all of our trainings on our website. Before I go into the displaced residents memo, I just wanted to see if you had any questions for me.
Are there any questions? All right, Trustee Sharice.
Danielle, I know you probably don't have an answer to this question, but how much is this, not our administration, but federal administration, affecting the increase of our homeless issues and all that stuff? What do you anticipate?
I think that the biggest threats to low-income residents in our community who we work with, and we work with all, I mean, we served 5,000 people last year, so, you know, a good portion of our population is cuts to food stamps and to Medicaid and any tampering with housing vouchers. And then targeting specific individuals for discriminatory activities and hate. But I think in terms of the, I know that work requirements sound good, but I just want to let the public know and the town board know that if you require work to someone who is able-bodied, and I put that in quotes, to work to receive food or like basic necessities like healthcare, then what you're doing is saying that everyone that the federal government is not aware of as having a disability will suffer greatly. And so the federal government already takes 2 to 8 years when they were like better staffed to determine disability. And so what that means is that all the people who struggle with a physical or mental disability or developmental disability or traumatic brain injury or intellectual disability who struggle to work, because in my experience, almost everyone who can work wants to. They want to, want to be engaged in purposeful activity that gives to others. That is human nature.
Well, I was going to say, it seems, my understanding is that a lot of people that get help anyway are working anyway, but they don't make enough to actually live on. Exactly. Okay, so,
So
on
that,
top of that issue, we also have the issue that you were just talking about.
correct.
Okay.
So we already had only 1 in 5 households that needed a housing voucher have it. So for like less than the U.S. population pays for storage units, you could house every single person who needs a housing subsidy. And for 1/7 of the cost of the military budget, you could house every single person in the United States who needs a housing subsidy. So we already had that situation before now. That said, I will say what it means for township on a day-to-day basis is primarily that we're going to see an increase in participants because of precarity, layoffs and things like that. But in terms of our funding, thank God we're funded by our residents of Urbana and the state of Illinois. Right now, I'm feeling pretty solid, and the city and our funders, the county, et cetera. We are in a pretty stable situation. We just, anything that we can do from a policy perspective, as Esther Pat was mentioning, to basically protect folks and look at prevention, it's going to be really, that costs no money, right? Or very little. How can we put policies in place that protect residents? I think it's going to be really important. And then making sure that the budgets that we produce, they're moral documents, and they should reflect our values and priorities. And so we just need to look carefully at our budgets. It's not business as usual, as you know.
Okay, another question I had when you were talking about the calls for assistance that were coming in. how many of those calls, if you know, are repeated month by month by month? Or are there a lot of repeat callers? I mean, like, you know, some people that we help every month.
Yeah,
As-
absolutely.
how
I
many-
mean,
Are there any, what's the ratio of repeat to new?
you know, I'd have to, I do have several interns who are starting this summer. One has a PhD and his focus is on stats, and I'd be happy to ask him, see if he'd be interested in helping out with that piece. I was comparing our calls for service to the Barry Dunn report, where the police receive 1,600 calls for service a month, because I think it's the same service area and similar metrics. Their incoming calls for service don't distinguish between unique one-time calls and repeat calls. So, but, you know,
I just want to get an idea of the population that is in perpetual need,
yes,
as opposed to the people, as folks, like you said, they got laid off and they can't, and what Ms. Pat was saying about, you know, you can't find a home in 14 days.
yeah.
So that's why I asked that question.
That's helpful. I think what I would probably want to pull is how many unique individuals in Urbana and unique households did we serve in a year? That might give us a picture of like, okay, in a given year, how many households are we talking about? And we can focus on Urbana, and then we can look at the county, because we do homeless services for the county, although most of our work is focused on Urbana.
Yeah, but we can also try to focus maybe possibly on a smaller population of people that are newly in need, and try to find a solution to that thing too. So when Ms. Pat was talking about, you know, like the condemnations and people not being able to find housing quick enough, then to me that's a new need. If you've been laid off of a job and you haven't had to, you know, you've been working someplace for 10 years or whatever, and you've been, you know, comfortable in a particular place, and then all of a sudden you have no income, that is a new problem.
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking that question.
And our new intern, one of the things that he is assigned already will be looking at our general assistance program. And one of the things in our application is how recent your like when your last job was essentially, and also your education level. And so he will be visualizing some of that data for us. I think that'll give us some clues.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional questions?
If I would, I'd like to move on to the displaced residents memo. And then I know that we're going to have a closed session shortly after. So if I could just give you the 211, especially as members of the public are here and the public may be watching. And we will come back to this at the rapid rehousing item. So this is kind of part 2 of my supervisor's memo. I usually don't have part 2, but here we go. The overview, I did list some of the root causes. I think we've seen a tightening of the housing market leading to a steep rise in rents, and we've been seeing 15 to 40% increases. I've seen 100%, but that's an outlier. I've seen 5%, that's an outlier. We see a lack of sufficient tenant protections, advocacy, and legal aid. In both cities, in particular, there's some protections in Urbana that don't exist in Champaign, and we could do better in Urbana. And then we saw, people keep asking, why are there so many homeless residents? Is it because we have so many services? I was like, nope, there's 38% increase in homeless families that is the point in time count of January 2024, not 2025, 2024, and 17% for individuals. And HUD, hopefully if they still have staff left, may let us know what 2025 looks like. All area shelters are confirmed to be full or operating over planned bed count like we are as of May 7th. Strides are only low barrier shelters full with a wait list of over 50 residents. And I just want to note that shelter bed numbers remain about half what they were 10 years ago. So when we're like, what's going on? Well, we have, Center for Women Transition was folded into a women's fund, and, we lost a lot of units on Church Street. And Salvation Army does not run a a shelter anymore. And there's almost 100 men in that shelter. So when you ask why are they full and is this an ongoing problem, it's really important to look at the history and the data. Then I want to point out the most recent crisis. Havenstone Apartments has 35 units, which were declared unfit for occupancy. We're working with 14 households. I list the situations because I want people to understand that it's pretty much all folks with vulnerabilities. There's not a single household without a significant vulnerability. And I do want to applaud the City of Urbana's tenant relocation ordinance for providing 2 weeks of housing. What we did is, as long as residents were working towards an exit plan, we have taken over paying for their housing, so they remained in shelter. And Housing Authority also stepped up to offer 2 weeks of hotel stays. So our stay came after those. Champaign Park Apartments, which I know is not Urbana, but I just want to, it's all, it's one homeless community. We have one low barrier shelter. All 29 units are now condemned. I know Esther mentioned 26, but as of last Wednesday, 29 units were condemned. They are owned by, both of these are owned by New York-based, I used to live in New York, I love New York, but what the heck? Got New York-based companies that really have allowed deplorable conditions. In Champaign and Urbana, I'm going to show you a few photos. I think the public needs to see photos of what the conditions are. It is horrific. We're working at 19 households at Champaign Park Apartments. We believe, based on our survey of those residents, that over 100 people are living there in those buildings, and it will be a matter of weeks before they're completely boarded up, and all 100 will be on the street. So please do not sweep people who are living in tents and throw their tents away a day after they pitched them, because there's not going to be another place for them to live. So we have made contact with a total of 33 households. I have been looking everywhere for money. Through our HHI grant, which is not yet totally solidified with the City of Urbana, but we are willing to move forward with levy funds if it is not solidified. Worked with the grants administrator, and he was comfortable with us moving forward with starting to spend. So $20,000 in HHI funding through the City of Urbana is paying for our case management, but case management ain't nothing if you don't got money for rent. I mean, it's something, but you can dry people's eyes and, as they're crying, and you can give them, some food and shoes. But so I've really been beating my shoe on the table for funding for rental assistance. And what I've been able to do is cobble together, essentially City of Champaign Township had underspent their rental assistance dollars, not their rental assistance, their rapid rehousing, which is a kind of rental assistance. They are out of rental assistance. And so they are transferring about $75,000 in rental rapid rehousing dollars to us. I'm also trying to repurpose some of our SMAS money from the City of Champaign. Anyway, I have now authorized our staff to basically support anyone who's actively working with our office towards rapid rehousing in either location to provide a temporary hotel stay through June. So the goal is that if we're working with people, it is just, you cannot get people into housing when they are actively unsheltered on the street. It's really hard. So that piece is really needed. So I'm gonna just skip to the punchline here. I gave a lot of background on who is getting what and what their situations are. I just really wanted to let people know that we have people living in basements in Champaign that are flooding with water right next to electrical boxes, and it is horrific. There are many occupied apartments without water, electricity, or heat, with regular flooding, burst pipes, water actively leaking from the ceiling, next to exposed wiring, and a lack of safety. Garbage collection is not happening. They're overflowing. And we still had people who were saying, oh, I'm still paying my rent. And they're saying it's new management and it's going to be cleaned up soon. So anyway, it's a bad situation. I do want to, I'm going to show you a couple of photos. This is Urbana. This is what it looked like when they went in to view Havenstone, and it should not be allowed to get to this. Here's a falling down ceiling. Here's an exposed ceiling. Here is black mold. Here's more black mold. Again, these are photos that happened, that were taken prior to condemnation. Condemnation happened soon after. This is garbage and unsanitary conditions, broken doors. You can see the broken door here. This is what it looked like. This is, sorry, I could take, there are also pictures that showed, you know, like electrical cords coming out of windows. This is Champaign now, boarded up apartments, et cetera. You are not Champaign, but I just want to, you know, you can see there is water next to an electrical box. Like, that is water next to electricity. Not supposed to happen. Garbage, insanitary conditions, broken down doors. It's a similar situation in Urbana and Champaign. The punchline of this is we are cobbling together. We're building the plane as we fly it. We're cobbling together funds as we can. There has been no support from Champaign for any emergency housing. Here are the proposed exit strategies per household. So you can and this is, of course, changes on a day-to-day basis. But essentially, I will say with Havenstone, the model is we had a tenant relocation ordinance. There was an orderly process where we were notified in advance. We worked together on a condemnation date. We had people come through us to get to hotels. They signed program agreements. We explained what the rules were for them. We met their basic needs immediately: food, bus tokens, all of clothing, all the basic needs they had right then. We helped them move into housing. We gave them a case manager they could call if they had needs. The last time people were put in hotels, there was a lot of fights and their needs were not met, and I reported that to the town board. In this case, I just want to point out that people are oftentimes responding to the conditions in which they find themselves. And what we do is we criminalize their behavior when they're actually responding to the conditions they were in. So it's a very similar situation, same landlord. And if you just drop people into a hotel with no food, no clothing, no bus pass, it's 16 below outside, they're starving, you are going to see underground activity. You are going to see criminal activity. People are going to be in survival mode. It's going to be a bad situation. Let's not ever do that again. So in this situation, this model at least is a step up, which is that we took care of people's needs. And we were able to work with folks. We had several folks who said, I don't want to stay in the hotel, I have friends and family, or I'm not interested in working with you. That is the three that are represented who are not in the hotel. Otherwise, we're working on various referrals. You can see everybody else is housed. So Champaign Park Apartments, the fraction of a need. I know that this is not Champaign, but I'm just showing you it's kind of one pool. So what we'll get to tonight later, and we can discuss this, is the rapid rehousing piece, and just asking for your approval of an intergovernmental agreement with City of Champaign Township that would allow us to receive those dollars, mix it with the dollars we have, and basically do a very quick turnaround rapid rehousing for the residents we're working with. Long term, we really have to talk about prevention. I don't want to ever, it should never get to this. It just should not be allowed to get to this. We have a rental registration program in this community, and we need to make sure that inspections are happening, and that tenants feel empowered to call in issues, but even if they don't. That's the thing. It cannot be a response-driven issue. It has to be much more proactive. And we should be looking for telltale signs like, electrical cords coming out of windows or broken windows or things like that. And really focused on the real perpetrator, who are the landlords and the owners, not the tenants. They are not the perpetrators in these cases. Thank you for hearing me out, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And then, of course, we are going to have an item to talk about RH, so you could also ask questions at that time.
Are there any additional questions for Danielle? All right, Trustee Sharice.
What I guess what I want to know, and I've asked this question before, is because it seems like it's a lot of absentee landlords out of state, out of the city. Would it be helpful on some level if we insisted that there be a particular parameter of, like, if you own property and you're renting property, you have to at least be in the area somehow? Because my understanding is basically that with, especially these folks out of state, because this isn't the first time I've heard this. I've actually, talked to a couple of my constituents that have complained about some other places, and their management is in Chicago. Okay, yeah. When I went to look it up online, what do you suggest regarding absentee landlords? Because what is your suggestion? What is your solution?
So Esther, Pat, and I helped to author a rental registration program when we were both on city council. And one of the requirements of Urbana's rental registration program is that they have local management. They have to declare. I mean, the problem with the landlord situation is that in some cities, the city doesn't even know, like, you know who's paying the taxes through the treasurer, but that's it. You don't know who's managing, you don't have a local contact. So in Urbana, we have put that in place. The issue here was that there was a conflict, and is a standing conflict, between the owner and the local management, and they basically, they got rid of the local management, and then there was another local manager, and then there was a contest there. So it was a period of instability, and that probably should have raised red flags, and maybe it did. I'm not the city. So I would say I would encourage the city that if there is a change in the local contact, and there seems to be a fight between the whoever is the national or the out of town and the local, that's a really good time to be looking closely at what's going on. Because we do have that protection, so to speak, in Urbana. I'm really proud of that, and I think it's an important part of our system.
Would the city have the power to and somehow insist that owners of these properties show up here to explain those kind of issues? Is there
I think I would ask the city attorney the question of what you can compel an owner to do.
Okay.
We can't compel them to have a local contact that is legitimate, that the city could call, make sure that is a local contact, but I don't think, I don't know how you would compel somebody other than a subpoena in court. And then their lawyer would show up, so.
Also, I know that Illinois has a ban on rent control. And that, I think, would make a big difference, too, as far as affordable housing in Illinois, period. Do we have anything in play that you know of from our state representatives or anybody like that is maybe fighting to repeal that ban?
Yeah, there's been a number of groups that are looking at issues that are barriers to fair housing and affordable housing, including the ban on rent control. And the groups that we are a member of, Housing Action Illinois, which is a lobbying arm for, and policy shop for affordable housing. So I would encourage, and anyone can sign up as a Housing Action Illinois recipient of their blast. Is very helpful information to let folks know. And sometimes I will send to the town board opportunities to weigh in on issues that affect affordable housing. So I'll continue to send those to you because we are a member.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Trustee Jay?
Thank you. Thank you so much for this report and all the work that you and your staff are doing. Just to clarify, if people are wanting to help, right, not in terms of donations, but they're aware of someone, they know someone who is homeless right now, or they're facing homelessness, what's the best way to direct them? Is it to Champaign Cunningham Township? What are the best ways we can be supporting people? Because I do think that more people are going to be aware that we have such a crisis, because there's a huge number of people who suddenly don't have housing, right? So I appreciate that reminder too of like, these are members of our community. Don't be a jerk, I'll put it that way. But also thinking about like, how can we encourage people to help folks get connected to resources?
Yeah, so anyone can come by our office, and we have little business cards that are easy to hand out. I actually keep them in my car. I can bring you more. I've brought them to you before that are basically like what we offer, and what I'll do is when people come to me, I'll give them the card, and it's $1 to get to our office on the bus. So if you want to give people a bus token or $1 and a card, you can also call in a street outreach referral. So people can call our 384-4144 number. It's also on our website, and request a referral to check on an individual. You may want to ask them if they want a referral. And then if it is a family with kids in Urbana school or staying at Crisis Nursery, please encourage them to talk to their social workers, anyone in their school, about getting a referral, about anyone who's experiencing any housing insecurity. So what we did with the school system is we don't have people, the school district does not have to vet who's homeless and who's not homeless. You have a housing issue, let me give you a referral to Cunningham Township. A housing issue, let's do this. You could also do food referrals, et cetera, but most common is a housing referral. So Crisis Nursery with kids who are staying overnight can also do a referral. And like I said, we've changed our model so that anyone they will receive contact. The person who we receive a referral from, we will reach out within 48 business hours. And it's usually within 24 business hours. We'll make contact, we'll have a first available appointment, we will do an assessment with them, and then we connect them to whatever services, both the most urgent needs as well as to the longer term services. And sometimes people will say, hey, I need this, but when we get into it, there's a lot more needs, so those assessments really allow us to do that. So for families, that's really the best way. For individuals or families, we can dispatch somebody, or you can send them to our office. For individuals, I know that I mentioned there's a long wait at Strides, but they do receive some level of case management and supportive services, and they get in the queue to get services. And so I really encourage people to go through Strides so that they get into the kind of like continuum of care for homeless residents. They can do that through our street outreach, or they can do that through Strides. That said, you can't, you've got to realize when you don't have enough resources in a community. And again, like I said, we have like half the beds. When we look at emergency, like low barrier beds, we've done better at building transitional housing beds. I know Hope Village is coming online. I know See You at Home will have transitional housing. We have transitional housing in Urbana with See You at Home. We do transitional housing. So I think that we have built pieces of our continuum, but the low barrier shelter remains an issue.
I'll have just make a quick comment just to kind of piggyback off of what Sharice was saying. I think I'll have a conversation at some point this week with our attorney to maybe have a conversation with you and Ms. Pat if she's willing to come out of retirement around some ordinance stuff. But just in regards to, us revisiting some of those landlord contracts, right? Because this is long, those pictures show longer than just a year debate or, confusion or conflict between a landlord and a property manager, right? That goes beyond a year's time frame. So I think, if you ladies are up to it, I think just us revisiting, that contract and what that looks like, I think it's worth, and
Absolutely.
It's a start, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've got a punch list of how I'd like to see that resolution or the ordinance updated. And I think we could make some improvements that, I just think would provide more tenant protections.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Jaya?
Yeah, just to follow that, and I know we're kind of mixing roles here a little bit, but I know, I think it was last year, we had a lot of conversations about the number of inspectors we have in the city, so I think reviewing that too, to see, do we have an adequate workforce to make sure we're not waiting until we're getting to a point of things being condemned? And then I know the township has also talked about doing some testing to see if landlords are in compliance with our ordinances in Urbana. So I think those are just a couple other areas that I think are really important that the city could be doing more.
Yeah.
Are there any additional questions? All right, seeing none, I'm just gonna wait for the folks on the phone. All right, seeing none, we will move on now to unfinished business, which there is none. So our first item under new business is closed session for property pursuant to 5 ILCS 120-2 C5. Can I get a motion to enter into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
All right, the motion by Jaya, seconded by Sharice. Let me see here. Yeah. Clerk, will you please call roll? I'm sorry.
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Evans,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Colasetti,
Yes.
Trustee Bishop,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin,
Yes.
Trustee Quisenberry.
Yes. All right, that motion passes. For the public, we are now going to enter into closed session and will return to council chambers for the remainder of the agenda items and subsequent meeting afterwards. Thank you. All right. Can I get a motion to return to open session?
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved by Jay, seconded by Sharice. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Evans,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Colasetti,
Yes.
Trustee Bishop,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin,
Yes.
Trustee Quisenberry.
Yes. All right, thank you. Motion passes. All right, now we will move on to our next item of new business. The item is a special meeting of the electorate agenda for town board approval. Danielle?
Excuse me, I'm just getting my place. Okay. We're on, wait, hold on. Huh? You would think, okay, hold on, thank you. I have asked the clerk to call a special meeting of the electorate and to prepare an agenda that would allow us to, for the electorate to provide power to the town board for the purchase, sale, or disposition of township property. And so you have before you the proposed agenda that the clerk has put forward. Because I haven't done a special meeting before, the clerk probably knows the proper process in terms of motions and seconds, so I would defer to the clerk on them.
Consideration of this agenda is very similar to the agenda that we have for the annual town board meeting that you guys adopt every March as well. Following approval of the town board, this agenda will be advertised in the newspaper not less than 15 days ahead of the meeting, and it will also be posted publicly at 3 places within the municipality. Here at City Hall in the North Vestibule, where all notices are posted, at the township primary office at 205 West Green Street, and then also additionally at the Urbana Free Library.
Grace?
Thank you. I just had a question, clarifying that this would be Monday, June 16th at 6:30, and seeming to mean that we think this would be finished within 30 minutes, and if not, if we would just delay council meeting just like it were a town board meeting like tonight.
So yes, in our city code, committee of the whole will start after whatever prior meeting precedes it. So on June 16th, the order of the meetings would be first this considered meeting of the electorate, which is not a meeting of the township board, it's a member of registered voters of the township, followed then by a regular meeting of the Cunningham Township Board as well after that meeting. And then the third meeting that evening will be, I believe, a Urbana City Council Committee of the Whole meeting, because I believe that's the third Monday in June, if I'm not mistaken.
Lots of meetings. Thank you.
Are there any additional questions? All right, seeing none.
I do have one more
Sharice?
question. As far as letting people know what the, you said it'll be at the library, at the township, here, and there was another place?
Yeah, it will also be advertised in the News Gazette, which is the exact same noticing process for the annual town board meeting and is outlined in state law regarding how to advertise meetings of the electorate. It'll also be on our website as well, like all regular meeting agendas are.
Can I ask two more questions? Because the biggest complaint I hear from my constituents is how they don't know. And my constituents don't necessarily read the News Gazette. They don't subscribe to the News Gazette. And of course, they don't have transportation all the time to get here. Is there a way that we can put this notice also on maybe WILL and I forget the other radio station, Mayor, what is it? WEFT
So
as a PSA?
Sure. So I hear you. All agendas of the city, including the agendas for tonight's evenings, are sent out to both the city council and also a public release email group, which is members of the press who have requested to receive agendas for all city meetings. So they do receive it via that. As far as being able to advertise over the radio, the clerk's office only has a budget for publications, which is to be utilized for printed media. Beyond that, I'm unsure if another city department or the township has funds available for such advertising, but traditionally we follow what is outlined in the state law, which is the newspaper, the printed publication of the agenda, and as an addition beyond that, we also email it to the press and put it on our website.
Okay. I can put this on my Facebook page?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, are there any additional questions? All right, can I get a motion to approve the special meeting of the electorate agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion to approve by trustee Grace, seconded by Jaya. Is there any discussion? All right, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu?
Yes.
Trustee Evans?
Yes.
Trustee Hersey?
Yes.
Trustee Colasetti?
Yes.
Trustee Bishop? Trustee Bishop? Trustee Wilkin?
Yes.
Trustee Quisenberry?
Yes. All right, that motion passes. All right, next we have resolution number T 2025-05-005R, a resolution authorizing certain individuals to sign checks for Cunningham Township. Danielle.
This is a very straightforward resolution that essentially allows us with 3 different offices to have at least 2 check signers at every office location. And our checks are double signature. And we will sometimes need to move checks on we make checks on a daily basis, but we'll need to move checks quickly to avoid eviction for folks. And so there has been some slowdown in checks at times just with moving into 3 locations. We've also had some change in our personnel, and I've promoted up a management team. So there are new deputy and manager Carrie, Deputy Shayla Kenyon are now represented Those are the only two new names that are listed here. Then we've removed employees who are no longer with us so that they were already moved from our bank accounts.
Are there any questions? No, seeing or hearing none. Can I get a motion to approve resolution number T 2025-05-005R?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Motion to approve.
I'm sorry, I have a slight friendly amendment that was requested, which is Ivana Owana's name is misspelled. So if the correct,
That was corrected.
it was corrected?
Yes.
Oh, good job, Darcy, thank you. Yes, I was looking just now. Never mind, I have no friendly amendments.
All right. So the motion to approve was by trustee Grace and seconded by trustee Jaya. Is there any additional discussion? All right, seeing as though there are none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Evans,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Colasetti,
Yes.
Trustee Bishop,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin,
Yes.
Trustee Quisenberry.
Yes. All right, that motion passes. Next, we have resolution number T 2025-05-006R, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an intergovernmental agreement for rapid rehousing between the city of Champaign Township and Cunningham Township. Danielle.
This is a follow-up on my presentation during reports of officers. But essentially, the intergovernmental agreement that is in your packet has been reviewed by City of Champaign Legal, and I have a written approval of it. It is going to their town board on June 10th, and it's before you tonight. It essentially allows City of Champaign Township to make Cunningham Township a sub-recipient of their rapid rehousing funds, both through home funds and ESG, which means Emergency Solution Grant funds. And the total is about $79,000. And that will allow us to essentially house those with income who have been displaced by Havenstone, at Havenstone Apartments and Champaign Park Apartments. We expect that these dollars would support about 12 households.
Are there any questions? No? All right. Sharice?
Okay. On here, it says 75,566. Is this, am I looking
Yeah,
at the
the
correct
amount
thing?
in the IGA is, there's two different pots. So essentially, home IDHS funds are 57,240, and ESG funds are 20,976.
Okay, now, yes, now I
So it's
see.
two different pots, and we've already been in contact with IDHS, and they've essentially approved in writing. As soon as this goes through, we'll be able to change it in the portal and have access to those dollars going back to May 1st.
Okey doke.
Are there any, Grace?
Sorry if I'm just missing it. I think maybe if Sharice was getting at, there's the different numbers in the resolution itself versus the agreement. Is that okay? In the therefore clause of the resolution.
Wait, hold on a second. 75 before 7. Yeah,
That
hold on a
54 should be
second.
57.
Yep, there's been so many little, this may be a remnant of the fact that City of Champaign is also spending down their grant. So let me make sure I have the latest. Yeah, it should say 57. If the resolution should match the IGA that was approved. Let me make sure that I have the. I'm looking at the actual approval from Champaign just to make sure that it's an error just on the resolutions part. 57, 240, and 20. Yes, so if if you could just amend, I'd ask for a friendly amendment so that the numbers of the resolution match the latest IGA. There was a delay, as you know, we had our town board meeting was delayed by a week, and there were a few tweaks to the IGA. But the IGA, the intergovernmental agreement, has the most recent numbers.
So I would just recommend to the board, because we don't currently have a motion on the floor, then when a motion for approval is made, that language is included in the motion so that the numbers in the resolution are modified to match the latest values reflected in the IGA.
Okay.
I'd be happy to do that unless there's other questions. Yeah.
So what?
Before the motion is made, do you have another question?
No, I was just, you want the numbers that would be 57, 240, and the number, and 2976? Those are the numbers, Danielle?
Yeah, it's
That's-
the 57,240 and 20,976.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Then I would move for approval, resolution number T 2025-05-006R, resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an intergovernmental agreement for rapid rehousing between the city of Champaign Township and Cunningham Township Supervisor's Office, with the resolution amended to reflect the numbers in the agreement of 57,240 and $20,976.
Second.
All right, motion made by Grace, seconded by Sharice. Any further discussion? No? All right, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Evans,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Colasetti,
Yes.
Trustee Bishop,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin,
Yes.
Trustee Quisenberry.
Yes. All right, that motion passes. With no further business before this body, this meeting is adjourned. We will begin the special city council meeting momentarily. Thank you all.